In 2007, the ancient Italian city of Perugia was a place of dreams for many young students. Its cobblestone streets, historic universities, and vibrant culture offered a perfect backdrop for learning and adventure. For Amanda Knox, a 20-year-old from Seattle, it was exactly that, the fulfillment of a long-held ambition to study abroad. She imagined a year of translating poetry, making new friends, and immersing herself in a different way of life. She shared a small cottage on Via della Pergola 7 with other students, including a bright and kind young woman from Britain named Meredith. Their lives, filled with youthful optimism, were about to intersect in the most tragic way imaginable. This idyllic picture was shattered on a cold November morning. Meredith was found brutally murdered in her bedroom, a discovery that sent shockwaves through the quiet city and far beyond. The dream had become a living nightmare. What began as a standard police investigation quickly spiraled into an international media sensation. The world's cameras and reporters descended upon Perugia, hungry for a story. They found one that was complex, confusing, and full of characters that seemed to fit preconceived narratives. The focus swiftly shifted from the search for a killer to a global spectacle centered on the American student Amanda Knox. The story captivated audiences worldwide. It had all the elements of a dark thriller, a beautiful victim, an exotic location, and a cast of young suspects. But beneath the surface of the sensational headlines, a deeper and more troubling story was unfolding. It was a story not just about a crime, but about how perception, bias, and a rush to judgment can create their own form of injustice. The case would raise profound questions about the workings of the media, the reliability of police investigations, and the very nature of guilt and innocence in the court of public opinion. It became a saga that would last for years, trapping lives in its web. Before the first piece of evidence was properly analyzed, opinions were already hardening. The initial hours and days of the investigation set a course that would prove difficult to correct. The authorities, under immense pressure to solve a horrific crime, zeroed in on the people closest to the victim. Amanda Knox and her Italian boyfriend, Raffaele Solicito, found themselves at the heart of a storm they could not comprehend. Their every action, every word, and every expression was scrutinized and interpreted. This was not just a criminal case, it was the beginning of an international witch hunt, and the invisible guilty party, Bias, had already entered the room. Meredith was a vibrant student from South London, full of promise and dreams, whose life was tragically cut short in Perugia, Italy. Her family's search for justice would become a global story. Amanda Knox, an American student, quickly became the focus of investigators and the media, her behavior scrutinized and sensationalized. Alongside her was Raffaele Solicito, her new boyfriend, both cast as suspects in a narrative shaped by headlines. Meanwhile, Rudy Guede's role was downplayed as the world watched a courtroom drama where truth and fiction blurred. On November 2, 2007, Amanda Knox returned to her Perugia cottage to find the front door ajar, blood in the bathroom, and her roommate's door locked. Alarmed, she called Raffaele Solicito and the police. The investigation quickly turned chaotic, with suspicion falling on Amanda and Raphael. Police focused on their behavior, not the evidence, setting the stage for a case built on confusion, missteps, and confirmation bias. After Meredith's body was found, Amanda Knox and Raffaele Solicito were brought in for questioning, unaware they were already prime suspects. The interrogations grew intense. Amanda, exhausted and denied a lawyer, was subjected to relentless pressure. Police planted suggestions, twisted her words, and insisted she was hiding the truth. After hours of coercion, Amanda signed a false confession. This single, coerced document became the cornerstone of the case against her, outweighing all evidence to the contrary. As soon as the police announced their suspects, the global media descended on Perugia like a pack of wolves. The story was irresistible: a beautiful American student, a handsome Italian boyfriend, and a brutal murder in a picturesque European town. The narrative quickly morphed from a tragic crime story into a lurid soap opera. The Italian and British tabloids in particular led the charge. They were not interested in the slow, methodical process of a police investigation. They were interested in selling newspapers, and to do that, they needed a villain. Amanda Knox was cast in that role with chilling efficiency, transforming from a suspect into a caricature overnight. The media's portrayal of Amanda was relentless and deeply misogynistic. They seized upon the nickname Foxy Knoxy, which she had used on her MySpace page as a playful nod to her soccer skills. In the hands of the tabloids, it became a sinister moniker, suggesting she was a cunning, hypersexual predator. They published excerpts from her private journal, taking her words out of context to paint a picture of a deviant personality. Stories of drug-fueled orgies and satanic rituals were invented out of thin air with no basis in fact or evidence. A narrative of a sex game gone wrong was fabricated, providing a simple, sensational motive for an otherwise inexplicable crime. This character assassination had a profound effect on public perception and inevitably, on the legal proceedings. The prosecution, led by Giuliano Mignini, seemed to embrace the media's narrative, incorporating its themes into their official theory of the crime. The courtroom became a theater where character, not evidence, was on trial. Leaks from the prosecutor's office regularly fed the media new, salacious details, creating a feedback loop of bias. The press reported the prosecution's theories as fact, and the prosecution used the public outrage fueled by the press to bolster their case. Amanda Knox was no longer a person. She was a symbol, a monster created for public consumption. The contrast with the coverage of Rudy Guede was stark. Guede, whose DNA was found all over the crime scene and whose bloody palm print was on Meredith's pillow, was largely ignored in the early media storm. His criminal history and flight to Germany after the murder were treated as secondary details. The story the world wanted was the one about the beautiful American she-devil. This cascade of biased reporting ensured that Amanda Knox was convicted in the court of public opinion long before her trial even began. The invisible guilty party, bias, was no longer invisible. It was on the front page of every newspaper. The Perugia courtroom became a global media circus, with the prosecution spinning a sensational story rather than presenting solid evidence. Amanda Knox was cast as a manipulative foreigner, her personality and private writings twisted to fit a villainous narrative. The prosecution's case relied on character attacks, not facts, while Meredith Kircher was idealized as the innocent victim. Meanwhile, Rudy Guede, whose DNA and fingerprints were all over the crime scene, was downplayed as a mere accomplice. Hard evidence against Guede was ignored in favor of a more dramatic tale implicating Amanda and Raphael. The media amplified this narrative, focusing on Amanda's supposed deviance and largely ignoring the forensic reality. The result, a trial driven by emotion and spectacle, not by truth. The power of a compelling story repeated endlessly overshadowed the actual evidence and shaped public opinion. Justice was derailed by a narrative that demanded villains and heroes, not facts. In Perugia, the story mattered more than the science. The prosecution's smoking gun DNA evidence was anything but reliable. The kitchen knife and bra clasp, supposedly linking Amanda and Raphael to the crime, were both collected and handled with shocking carelessness. Cross-contamination risks were ignored, gloves were reused, evidence was moved between rooms, and the bra clasp sat on the floor for weeks. The DNA samples were so minuscule and degraded that experts later called them scientifically meaningless. Yet, the prosecution presented these findings as irrefutable, omitting the glaring issues of contamination. The media, lacking expertise, reported these claims as fact, cementing public belief in guilt. The truth of forensic science was sacrificed for a simple, damning headline. DNA became a weapon for narrative, not a tool for justice. The real science was lost in the noise. With weak evidence, the prosecution doubled down on storytelling. They invented a motive, a sex game gone wrong, without a shred of supporting evidence. This lurid theory, echoed by the media, turned the trial into a tabloid spectacle. Amanda and Raphael were cast as depraved archetypes, while the lack of forensic links was ignored. The prosecution's story was simple and shocking. The defense's science was complex and overlooked. In the end, fiction won over fact. The conviction was secured not by proof but by a story the world wanted to believe. Science never stood a chance against sensationalism. Amid the chaos, a bloody footprint on a bath mat was ignored for years. The prosecution insisted it belonged to Raphael, but its size matched Rudy Guede, the man whose DNA was everywhere. This crucial clue contradicted the group assault theory and pointed to a lone killer. Investigators, blinded by their chosen narrative, dismissed the evidence that didn't fit. The footprint was a missed opportunity, a path toward the truth that was never taken. It took years for courts to acknowledge this oversight. The bath mat print stood as silent proof of an investigation derailed by bias. The truth was there, but no one wanted to see it. Justice was lost in the rush to convict. The 2009 guilty verdict sent Amanda and Raphael to prison, but the fight wasn't over. On appeal, independent experts dismantled the prosecution's forensic case, exposing contamination and unreliable DNA. In 2011, the convictions were overturned. Amanda and Raphael were freed, and the world watched as justice seemed restored. But the prosecution appealed, and in 2013, Italy's highest court ordered a new trial, plunging the case back into chaos. Amanda, now in the US, faced retrial in absentia. The legal saga dragged on, driven by a system unwilling to admit its mistakes. Each reversal revealed the fragility of justice when narrative trumps evidence. The ordeal pushed everyone to their limits, with truth and fairness hanging in the balance. The case became a cautionary tale of how easily justice can be derailed. In the end, the story was never just about guilt or innocence. It was about the power of narrative to shape destinies. After years of trials and setbacks, Amanda Knox and Raffaele Solicito faced one final appeal before Italy's Supreme Court. This time, the judges meticulously reviewed the entire case. Their verdict was absolute. Amanda and Raphael were exonerated, declared innocent of all charges. The nightmare was finally over, and justice was served at last. Amanda Knox's exoneration brought legal closure, but the cost was immense. 4 years in prison, relentless media scrutiny, and the Foxy Knoxy label left scars that never faded. Her family spent millions fighting for her freedom, draining their savings and relying on community support. Today, Amanda uses her voice to advocate for the wrongfully convicted, but the weight of the label remains, a shadow that endures. While Amanda Knox and Raffaele Solicito fought for their freedom, the Kircher family endured the pain of losing Meredith. Through years of court battles and shifting verdicts, they sought only truth and justice for Meredith. Their grief was often overshadowed by the media circus. The final verdict brought no closure, only more questions. Meredith's memory deserves truth, not spectacle. In the end, when bias prevails, there are no true winners. While the world focused on Amanda Knox and Raffaele Solicito, Rudy Guede's guilt was clear from the start. His DNA was found all over the crime scene, including on Meredith Kircher's body and belongings. His bloody palm print was left on a pillowcase beneath Meredith's body. Unlike Amanda and Raphael, Guede fled Italy and was arrested in Germany. He was convicted of murder and sexual assault, with courts later declaring him the sole perpetrator. Yet, Guede's story received little attention while 2 innocent people fought to clear their names. The Amanda Knox case exposed the dangers of cognitive bias in justice and the power of media to shape public opinion. It led to reforms in police training and media accountability, emphasizing evidence over intuition and ethical reporting. The case is now a warning beacon, reminding us that procedural safeguards and ethical guidelines are essential to prevent injustice and protect lives. More than a decade after Amanda Knox's exoneration, her case still matters. It shows how trial by media has evolved into trial by social media, fast, volatile, and often cruel. The case exposes how women are judged for their behavior, not evidence, and how institutions can fail. Ultimately, it's a warning: justice must be based on facts, not bias or sensationalism. We must learn from this to prevent future injustices. The Amanda Knox case is a chilling study in how bias, media sensationalism, and systemic failure can create a villain where none exists. The shadow of this bias eclipsed the truth for years, as a simple act of grief policing spiraled into a global media frenzy and a wrongful conviction. Ultimately, it took years, and Italy's highest court to dismantle the fiction. The lesson: justice demands humility, evidence, and the courage to question our assumptions. The Amanda Knox case is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating cost of wrongful convictions and the urgent need for truth and justice. Meredith Kercher's memory deserves more than a spectacle. It deserves a system guided by evidence, not bias. Let us honor her legacy by demanding integrity from our institutions and ourselves, so that truth, not error, prevails.